Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, the show about ways to stay competitive in a changing market, break through business plateaus, and respond to the changing expectations of today's customers. Your host, Jess Dewell, is a rapid growth entrepreneur, consultant, and business advocate with a 20-year track record of business excellence. She candidly discusses how to achieve your growth strategy and realize your company's unfulfilled potential. Now, here's Jess.
You're in the right place for conversations about needs that we as business owners face today. It could be in regards to technology. It could be in regards to customer expectations. And it could be handling, managing, and facing quickly changing markets. This program is about what it means to reach our short-term goals and increase confidence in our long-term positioning. This is program 226, a business plan that lasts 100 years. And today we are talking with Jeffry Caudle, founder of NeuroDash, a technology startup. And Jeff is a critical thinker that looks for ways to improve workflow for us to reach our fullest potential, both as individuals in business and businesses in the marketplace. Glad to have you back, Jeff.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Now, see, one of the things I love about having Jeff on the show is that he and I have like 3 or 4 different conversations beforehand. He comes to me with an idea, we talk back and forth, and then we actually sit down and we talk about it. Sometimes we even talk about it a second time and really refine our ideas. And then we're still both out thinking about it, having these conversations. So today may follow what we talked about, but it also may not, because we are prepared to go in any direction around what it means to create a business that lasts 100 years. And I want to start with this. Now, this is something that Jeff found. I will totally give him credit for this. And he said, your business should be 100% more profitable than it is today. And by the way, it could be 500% more profitable than it is today. Now, that is the premise for the title. That is the premise for the show. And as we're having this conversation today, we are going to be putting out a case for that, for you to join in with the experience that you have so that you can actually understand what you're doing really well and where you can build in some flexibility and adaptability to stay on the path that you want, the way that you want, as long as you want. So what are your first thoughts as I set up this intro, Jeff?
Well, there's a lot to it, obviously. I mean, the thing is that when we're talking about a plan, we're talking about looking ahead at the needs of your product and the needs of your business, right?
Yes.
So the question is how do you get to the 100%, right? How do you get to there with technology? How do you do that? And what I found was that technology is what produces efficiency, right? It's what produces the growth that we need, right? So administrative technology can actually make you 17% more efficient. And then if you include a CRM, that's 32% more.
So CRM is customer relationship management
system.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think the biggest premise is that when you look at businesses and you look at small businesses, all of them within the last 20 years, they've all used technology early on. They've all used it to grow. And what I've been doing is I've been doing some research as far as looking at how far can a business grow, as far as can they grow, what are the limits? Because I keep hearing the Pareto principle and I keep kind of finding this number come up, the 80-20, as far as 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, right? And a Pareto distribution is the idea that you can only reach maximum efficiency at 20%, basically. But the thing is that when you look at the original research that went into it, they were studying pea pods, right? People are not pea pods. And the other thing is that...
No, we are not.
What's fascinating is that even with pea pods, if you look at the growth within the last 100 years, it's since Pareto did the experiment studying it, it's gone up 500% in the yields. And that's from technology. And so the biggest thing to think about is when you look at technology as far as where we're headed right now, you can get 100% growth. and with what we have.
And I'm thinking about this, right? One of the premises that we have here at Red Direction, and I know you believe in this too, which is probably one of the reasons that we have such great conversations, and that is every business is a technology business. So everybody out there that's selling insurance and has an insurance brokerage, you are a technology business. Everybody out there that's a locksmith, you are a technology business. Everybody out there that is doing custom programming and you're doing a service as a delivery, you are a technology business. When you're out there and you're thinking about software as a service, okay, that's fine. That's a product, that's technology. But your business that you run everything else on for your internal workings is also technology. And we tend to put that last. And what I like about everything that you've said so far, Jeff, is that we are putting it first. We are saying when we embrace technology, we can do more than we could just do without it. And when we ensure that we are using technology to create the interworkings of our business, it allows us to be much more adaptable because technology is a little easier to change than our habits.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is, so last time we talked about transparency.
Yeah.
And when you're moving from transparency to technology, what you're doing is you're creating an organization that runs itself, essentially. And the idea is that as your organization grows, your problems scale with you. And so when we think about technology, it isn't just efficiency, it's also precision, coordination, communication, and trust.
Yep.
That's something that we established last time. But I think the biggest question that small business owners should look at is, why adopt technology? If you're a small business, why should you do that? And the biggest reason is because 80% of businesses right now aren't growing. They're single employer or single non-employer businesses. They don't hire people. They never grow and they never move past it.
Hang on just a second. I want to pause on that stat because it's that important. So you're saying 80% of all small businesses, which by the way, over 97% of United States businesses are small businesses. So we're looking at over 97% of all businesses in the US are small businesses. And you're saying 80% of those are one-person businesses.
Non-employers, yeah.
Non-employers. Okay.
Yeah.
And so for those of you out there with 1 employee or 3 employees or 5 employees, I want you to be listening in. Even if you're up to 10, I want you to be listening in because we're still below that ratio of, sure, you're an employer, but here's the deal. The way we carve out the work we do, how we create accountability with the people on our team applies in those small businesses up to 10 as much as it does with all those single businesses. And with that, please keep going, Jeff.
Okay. So when you're looking at technology, you're looking at a business and you're looking at everything. When you look at the 80-20, what you're seeing is a Pareto distribution. And what I found was that a Pareto distribution, when technology is not involved, is as far as efficient, that's as efficient as you can get. And as soon as you introduce technology, what you can do is you can look at a Pareto distribution and you can start to see that's an area for improvement. So if 80% of your best results are coming from 20% of your efforts, it means that you can implement some kind of technology there to improve your efficiency. And you can do it like right now, if you wanted to, you can at least get 17% just by implementing any technology. You can improve your time by at least 32 hours per the month. And that's per person as you implement technology. And that's just administrative software.
Right. So here's the thing, and I want to put this in here. All of a sudden, people's hackles are going to go up because I'm listening to this. And when we first started talking about it, my hackles went up. And that was, but hang on, all businesses are people. And we hear out there that the most successful businesses are the ones that have people in the center. And I'm going to say, absolutely. And everything that, Jeff, you are saying is absolutely right, because here's where we're at. We're trying to get people out of repetitive work so that they can go be people and make the most impact for our businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is that what you can do with that is you can get outside. You can like the thing about technology right now, what's great about it is that if you keep adopting it and if you move towards automation, you don't need to babysit the computer anymore. You don't need to sit there and try to produce a plan. You don't need to sit there and try to produce a schedule. You know, there's a lot of different software options out there. And the biggest thing is that as soon as you do that, you can open up your business in a whole new way. You no longer have to worry about marketing because that is your focus. You no longer have to worry about your relationship with your customers because that becomes your focus. And therein lies where a business can grow. I met several business owners that they had a partnership and one person was sitting at a computer all day while the other person was going out and doing the work. And imagine if you freed them up, right? What is the percentage as far as like when you take two people and you make one person now an available worker? You've increased it by 100%, right? You've doubled your productivity. And that in of itself can be a way to measure your productivity. How many people do you have off the computer and out there and, you know, enjoying life, working outside, you know, working with people? Technology is about getting away from the things that a machine can do and doing what only people can do, which is build relationships.
And I'm going to pause right here because we're going to bring in the other part of this conversation. So what we've been doing right now is we've been setting up the groundwork for that efficiency statement that was made at the very beginning. You can be 100% more profitable than you are today. And we're establishing that by saying AI and automation have this ability to free up. And so we have to face our fears about technology and that technology is taking over our job and embrace it so that we can do more of what we want, so that we have the space to think about where we're going, so that we know and we understand everything becomes, we have more that we can go out and evaluate in terms of opportunity. What opportunity do we have and does it align with our plan? Because it's already hard to think about business planning. It's really hard to think about growth strategy when we're in that day to day. And so setting this up and taking that, I want to pause. I don't want to pause, but I want to like put a pin right here of this is where a business that can last 100 years with a very specific type of framework, we're calling it a plan. When we think of a plan, there's a stigma around it though. I want us to break today. And it's that a plan has to be 1 year or 5 years. And as soon as that you start your plan, the first obstacle you hit makes your plan obsolete. So you're flying by the seat of your pants. Well, guess what? Companies like Nintendo, companies like Colgate, companies, I mean, the list goes on. There are over 500 companies in the US alone that are over 100 years old. Now, and they're in the same industry. They haven't changed industry, but they've adapted over time. And this is where we're at today on what I hear, Jeff, what I hear you're saying is saying these businesses that are between 1 and 10 people have the ultimate possibility to not only get past survival and into some place of growth on a regular basis that's sustainable, but also to thrive because we can embrace technology and then we have more space to actually do some thinking about, so what does this look like? How is the market changing? Where do we want to be? What are our customers' needs? And can we start anticipating?
Basically, yes. I mean, the biggest thing that I think about is how can you be a leader in your business if you don't know where you're going? I mean, in a nutshell, the idea about planning is putting context to everything that you do. How do you know if this is the right decision if you don't know where you want to be in 10 years and 20 years and, you know, all the way to 100 years? The biggest thing is you want your business to outlast you and you want to build something that puts people first. And the question that you have to ask yourself, and this is what Steve Jobs always asked himself, is how do you want to change the world? That's how he built partnerships. That's how he got the guy, I forget his name, but he was the head of Pepsi, and he got him to go from Pepsi to Apple based on inspiration. That's how he got people to join. Is he said, do you really want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? And that's how you get people to join your organization, is you tell them where you're going to go. Yeah. And that's not about you. That's about your organization. And that's why I think it's important to say 100 years is because you're trying to build an organization that isn't about you. It's about the people involved and the people that you're serving. And you're trying to change something. And the biggest thing that I want to show people is the idea that when you look at your competitors and you look at the things they're doing bad, right? Don't just criticize yourself, criticize them. Look at what they're doing badly, because therein lies the opportunity of everything that they're doing. Like the way I think about it is every bad idea has already been implemented. And now what we have is an opportunity.
Every bad idea has already been implemented.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I love it. That is, okay, by the way, that's a Jeff original, and you're going to hear me say that once in a while. We can always attribute it to Jeffry Caudle here.
But yeah, that's the way I think about it, is that there are so many opportunities just being left around. And what I wanted to also establish is that there's this idea that there isn't enough, that there's scarcity, right? And what I found is that when you look at it, there are all these opportunities for small businesses to build partnerships. Like if you're a cleaning service, you can partner with a real estate agent and you can help people move out of their house. And so you can partner with a mover, right? If you're a chef, you can partner with a supply chain management service. There are so many partnerships that allow for so many possibilities. And the thing is that is where everything is going. There was an announcement recently where Amazon is now looking to hire only contractors, only small business owners, single small business owners that will do the package delivery. And the reason for that is that these larger companies are trying to evade taxes. And the way they do that is they hire contractors. And so everybody will follow Amazon. And so what you're going to see is a lot of opportunities for small business owners to be contractors, to not be a slave to one company, but to be able to work for multiple companies. And so how do you do that? If you're more efficient, you can get way more done and you can grow your business. But the one thing that I want people to think about is that if you partner with other people, you can help them grow their businesses and you can build a network. And in a network lies every opportunity that we can hope for. That is community. And I think that at the end of the day, what we strive for when we try to build a business is we strive to build a community. And that's where technology, I think, is leading us, is towards community.
And it's a different kind of collaboration. A woman I know who is surely becoming a regular connection, and I expect I would say almost friend. Her name is Carol Carter, and she uses this phrase called radical collaboration. And everything I hear you describing right now, Jeff, falls into this phrase of radical collaboration of, okay, I've got this thing I'm going to do. I know the problem I'm going to solve. I've got all kinds of elements, provided I'm willing to open my eyes and look at what I can do to be not only efficient, but to make sure my time is spent on the highest and use value, which is around thinking about growth and getting the growth. And by the way, every position in every company, whether it is one person, 100 people, 1,000 people, I'd say that is a core element of your role. What are you doing today that ensures that you are building growth and then going after that growth? And we all can do it different. We all have different roles and responsibilities. And one of the things, Jeff, that I'm really taking away is that it doesn't matter where we're at. We can change it. We can change our lens to look at this in a different way. And by the way, for those of us who are looking for the next big client, for those of us who are looking for the next step on our career path, for those of us who are going after experience and knowledge to become really well versed in the area that you're in, this is a key piece. How do you get more time to focus on those things? Because you know it will turn into opportunity later. And it's by getting things off your plate today. It's by recognizing what can we automate, what can we let go, how can we incorporate technology more in a manner that isn't, and I'm saying more, not often, which is a big difference, right, Jeff? I mean, there are a lot of companies that say, we got this technology and 18 months later, they're like, now we're going to upgrade the technology to this because we've outgrown it. I don't think we've outgrown anything. I think we're tired of using it. And I think we have this experience of we've got to be on this front line. And if we're technology savvy, we have to use this latest technology. I'm against that. And I'm here to say, Are you also against it, or do you have a different position, Jeff?
My position is, the best way I think about it is, you've heard, teach a man to fish, you feed him,
right?
Right? I say teach a man to fish and then sell him the bait. Sell them the bait, because that is a need. And the way I see it is that with technology and stuff like that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to meet the needs of your competitors, and you're using that technology to help them, to connect with them. And what I think about is that your competitors often could be your ideal customer. And that sounds weird to think about, but management consultants, for example, could help other management consultants. And the thing is that, again, the idea about technology is that you're using it to get away from it. And that's the irony about technology, is that with automation, it allows you to move away from the computer screen. As long as you're able to do that, you don't need to keep up with every latest trend. You just need to be able to implement what you need and understand what your customer needs. Once you understand your customer, you can understand what kind of technology you need to implement.
One of the things that we talk about regularly across Voice of Bold Business is anticipating customer changes. And I heard you say two really key things here. The first is, if your eyes are open and you have the space, you may have a new customer base in an area you hadn't had before. And you use the word, I could get my competitors to be my clients. Another thing that I heard you say that was really important is that when we're on top of customer change and seeing patterns, then we have the ability to adapt with that. Both of those things are anticipation. And by the way, we can be within our business plan. We can be within our strategy. We can be aligned to our mission and values and do all of those things. They actually can work together. And when we use them together, more often than not, our lives are easier on many fronts, not just freeing up our time to have time to do this. We actually practice, and the more we practice, the better we get, so we can head toward mastery, and we keep that creative and curious piece as we move forward. And so all of this is really important. And we're going to pick up this conversation right after this.
You are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. In every program, we share stories, tips, and concepts that benefit short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. For additional perspectives on your growth strategy, Jess Dewell is your business advisor and consultant. Go to voiceofboldbusiness.com and click the Find Out More button to get started. Now, back to Jess.
This is program 226, a business plan that lasts 100 years. And I'm Jess Dewell, growth entrepreneur. And today talking with me is Jeffry Caudle, founder of NeuroDash. Okay, we've already covered a lot of ground. And we jumped right in, and we didn't give a basis for anything too much, because when you listen to this show a decent amount, you understand exactly where we're at. Plus, we know you're grappling with really big things, and you're like, I got to just get through the end of this year. And we have just over 6 months to go, and I got to just get through this year. Well, hello, the whole point of the beginning of the show. Get short-term goals and increase confidence in long-term positioning. I don't think there's any other show that actually describes what this is all about than this one right here with me and Jeff. So just stating that in terms of what we're working with and how we're going. When we talk about a business plan, though, so that's 100 years out, we have to be like, well, where do we start? What is the first step we can take now? Because we're in the middle. It's not like we've stopped and we can take a break for too long. We have to think about this as we're doing everything else. So what is a good place to start? And Jeff, that's where I'd like to start right now. So when I'm starting to shift my lens, and our listeners, when you start to shift your lens from what's right now to also being in the future, where do we start?
So imagine that you're in a car and you're going at whatever speed that you need to go, right? the biggest thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you don't know where you're going, what do? You stop and you take a second. And it doesn't take as long as you think, because the question that you have to ask yourself is, why am I in business? What am I here to do? Right? Even if you were a contractor, what are you really after? I mean, are you after growth or money, or are you trying to move your company into a position where you feel like you can grow it and hire new people? But the biggest thing that you have to ask yourself is you have to dig a little bit deeper, and you have to go with a why of the why. And what I found was that with a mission, what you're trying to do is you're trying to answer the question of, okay, I want to start a business. Why? Because I want to serve people. Why? That second question is the most important. That's how you set your mission. And your mission is what you plan to set out to do within the next 100 years. And everything that you do after that is set around that why of that why. It's like, and I know it sounds weird, the why of the why, but that's always how I remember it is, I want to do this. I have this goal. Why? And then you follow up with the second why. And every time you do that, you know what your mission is. And the mission should be something that kind of keeps coming up in your life. It should keep coming up as far as, what do you want to change, basically? What do you want around you to change? Do you want people to smile when you see them? You know, just little things like that. I think that small business owners, they can make the world into kind of a better place. And I know that's like a cliche, but I mean, like in the terms of, they can free people from sort of the dredge of corporate life, and they can allow people to kind of find their own way, and they can set an example of, hey, here's a way to, travel and do what you want. My grandfather, he worked 3 months out of the year, and then he would travel the rest of the year. You can't do that. And so his whole thing, his mission was to go and travel, and to he would stay with the Maasai tribe. He had all kinds of adventures. My uncle, on the other hand, did the same thing, but he started a business and he grew it to a multi-million-dollar business. And what he did is he took immigrants, but he did pay them a fair wage. He would pay them $30 an hour and train them and teach them, and he would help them get their citizenship. And that was his mission. And then later on, he went on to become a missionary, an evangelist, a missionary. And so the biggest thing is that you see this all the time, but think bigger. There's a saying that I read recently, which is, think about your life and say, you look at what you have, but then say, maybe it's too small. Like, maybe I can have more than what I'm going after. And sometimes people set their goals too small. And so when you set goals that are too small, you start to get in the small-minded box where you think only a year out.
Well, that's right, safety. And we allow all kinds of other things to show up. Like, I have all these obligations. It might be my furry children. It might be my two-legged children. It might be my scaly children. It might be my extended family. It might be, I want to travel, whatever that, and so I work to travel instead of traveling to work, or vice versa, right? So it's all this mindset piece that we have that comes into play when we're thinking about our mission. And for every single person out there that's listening that is a business owner, small, medium, large, medium, you had the reason for starting your company, and you've brought all these people in. And I know as people are coming in, there's an extra responsibility, because we care so much about our mission and we care about the people that are part of our organization, that the weight of that responsibility is tough sometimes. And everything that Jeff is saying, when we are communicating our personal mission, when we continuously repeat, even when we get sick of hearing it, but we keep talking about it, it's just about the time other people are like, oh, I finally get it. And by the way, when we talk about our personal missions, whether it's not necessarily the company mission, but our personal mission as part of a collaborative group, as part of a work team, as an employer of somebody, or as an employee of somebody, we get to find out how much we really align. We get to find out where our interest overlaps, where the need is within the organization. And where I was going earlier is that release, that responsibility that we take for everybody in our organization. I'm going to use the word empower here. When we create a space that empowers failure, when we create a space that empowers ideas, when we create a space that allows people to show up and say, I've got an idea for a project. And you say, okay, what's next? They automatically know, well, here's the beginning. Here's why we have this problem, what we think this problem is. Out of all of the solutions, here are 1 or 2 options that really I can't decide upon, and they could get to outcome. They could both get us to our growth and our revenue and our mission over time. So let's talk about that and figure out which one we want to try out and see. And so there's this, and by the way, that's you, the leader. If you don't allow people to fail, nobody's going to bring you ideas. If you don't allow people to be curious and actually look at how they can improve what they're doing, nobody's going to try and improve what they're doing. So it doesn't matter if you bring in new technology. It doesn't matter if you automate. You've already lost them. And so I'm thinking about that because every single person in that organization chooses to come to work every day. You, solopreneur, you choose. Do you go to work every day? And I think that that's an interesting piece when we're thinking about mission is not only do we have to understand and recognize how our wagon, our personal mission fits into a larger organization. We also, when we're thinking about how do we create networks of businesses, we've got to be on the lookout for which wagons we want to go find.
So I have a general theory that almost all problems come down to preparation and planning.
Yeah.
Or what you could argue is preparation and prioritization. Because planning,
I like the word priority. Keep going.
Planning is basically prioritization. So let's just stick with that. Preparation and prioritization.
Yeah.
The basics of it is that what's interesting about it is that when you look at, okay, so let's say that you have 3 decisions or 3 ideas, and they're all great ideas, and you have no idea which one to pick. So what you do is, and this is what I did too, is that you take your values and you say, what are my values, right? For us, it was trust. That was a key one. It was efficiency as far as we wanted to make something that was better. And so what we did is then we looked at the decisions as far as where we could go. And we looked at what our options were as far as like what was possible, what connected to our values. And what I found was that the thing that has the most connections to what you're trying to do, decision-wise, that is the thing worth doing. So connections to your values is what makes a good decision. And the more connections it has. So if your decision is to expand your company, right? What are your values? Maybe you want to build trust. Well, how does growth fit into trust? Well, it allows you to go out and meet your customer where they are. It allows you to have more people doing things and expanding. And so that expansion of itself creates trust with your customer because it allows you to serve their needs. And so then you have a connection there. And then there's other factors, reliability, which is another factor of trust, right? And so that's where technology fits in. But then also you have all these other things. But the key takeaway is that the thing that connects the most to your values is the thing that you prioritize. And then the other factor that you can do is that you can also, if you have multiple people and they all have ideas, why not let them try it out if you can? The Morningstar model, that's what they do. They have people just come in and they say, I have an idea for this. Great, go and do it. Tell me how it works and then pitch it to the rest of the team if it works. Google does the same thing. The biggest thing is that I think that with an organization, you have to let people contribute to it and not just consider your values, but also the people within it. And that's your identity. And I think that your identity is what determines where you're going and what your 100 years looks like, what the future of your company is.
I'm going to call out ego and controlism right here because there is a chance and a trap that I have seen many companies, especially technology companies, get stuck in. And that is, we've got a mission and you're either on our mission or you're not. And you can't do anything without approval, or you can't do anything outside of this very tiny box. Well, that's really stifling. And I've known many a creative person over time that have been labeled horrible things within an organization. A rogue. You don't want to be a rogue in this organization. Well, hello. All they did was find a problem and solve it and put it out there for all the customers who were asking for it. Oh, but they didn't go through the process. Okay. It was an easy fix. It got us more customers, and it got us what? More retention. We had people that were going to leave that we kept from leaving all at the same time for just this little bit of work. And here's the thing. When our ego gets in the way, if it's our mission, and usually founders of the company really is where this comes down to, or we're protecting something, or we're going after something, or we're saying we've got to show up this way, well, maybe we're not showing up the right way. Or maybe the people that you've surrounded yourself, please come to the realization they're not going to be mini yous. That's the thing I think we have to be really careful of, because we can disguise a lot of bad things that actually keep us from getting to that 100% more profitable potential of 500% more profitable. Only with it'll all go away in a second with ego and control.
There's a philosopher named Simone de Beauvoir, and her theory was that we're only as free as the people around us. And so when you look at your employees, and if they feel like they're caged in a prison, that's a reflection of your own prison. That's a reflection of your own self-limitations. And what I find is that when we're looking at the people around us, if we hate them, we have to look at maybe it's that we're hating ourselves, you know. And you see this, there's a lot of psychology in an organization. There's a lot of philosophy to it. But it's important not to ignore it, because if you ignore it, you start to ignore yourself. And then as you ignore yourself, you ignore the needs of your customer, you ignore the needs of everything in your business. And when I've seen businesses fail, it often relates to the fact that they can't relate to people. They have a great product. I've seen it so many times where they've had great products, and you're just like, why couldn't you sell that? And they always have, a horror story of they spent $100,000 into it, and they spent 10 years, and then it didn't work out. And you're just like, why? And you kind of pay attention, and there's this lack of accountability of your life, where you start to not believe that you're in control, because you're trying so hard to control everyone else that you lose track of controlling yourself.
Yes. And by the way, the only thing we can control is ourselves. So coming full circle, start where we can get the most impact. Ta-da! Building off of that, Jeff, there's a question that I ask my clients. And actually, there's a lot of questions I ask my clients, but this one pertains to our situation. And I'm wondering how an organization that has technology, like small companies, they may have 20 pieces of technology and no cohesive single system. And I know NeuroDash is trying to create a way to consolidate at least some of that. Right. So you'll be able to experience some of this too. So the question that I'm going to just put out here, we don't have to answer it today. There's no answer to this question, but it's a reflection for you and our audience and me, all of us, all the time. And that is, how well have you predicted your customers' behavior so far?
Exactly. I made my plan 3 years ago, and I stayed exactly on schedule. The biggest thing, what I wrote in my plan was that what I saw as far as the need was that I believed that companies needed to make fewer decisions. That as an organization, in order for something to matter, you have to make fewer decisions. And so that was the heart of our technology, and what we were trying to do was take away decisions. And so every time there was something that came up, and we had to make a decision as far as do we put more buttons there? Do we just make it automated? Well, we automate it. We take away the decisions because that limits the amount of mistakes. And so what we looked at was, if we can automate it, we have to automate it. And what we found was that as we did that, everything started becoming automated. And then it just became an integrated system. But I found that what people really need is they need to make fewer decisions, so that what they really want can actually happen.
So by the way, I love this. It is the biggest block of any company I've ever seen is the fact they have too many decisions to make at one time. They've put out all these choices without vetting them to a gigantic team, and then there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and then everybody gets stuck. And so to go back to something that you said where, first of all, can you narrow down the decision, the opportunities, the possibilities before they go in to a presentation? And then once you've got that even down, before you go give them to anybody else, why don't you take this initiative and actually say, what are our values and which of these best align with our values? And then what is our mission and what best aligns with our mission?
Yeah.
To add to that, I'm thinking about, we need data to be able to make fewer decisions, because the decisions we're going to be making are sometimes going to be, well, how do we not make this decision over and over again? We've got a wheel. We found our pattern of something that somebody's doing. We can probably automate it. We can figure out a way to make it better. So what are those? What data do we need? And, being the researcher that you are, being the person who takes a whole bunch of time and is incredibly thoughtful about all of these solutions, my question to you is, how do we know what data we need? Because we don't want to get data. We don't want to be drowning in data either.
Well, yeah, that's actually the biggest problem that companies are having right now, is with all the big data, they're going around in circles. The way I think about it is to ask myself the question, what is data, right? Data is the question why, right? When I ask why, what am I really asking for? I'm asking for more data. So every time you ask why, it means you need data. Every time you approach a question you can't answer, you go and you get data, right? So you have to ask the questions first. If you're not asking the questions first, well then of course you don't know what data you need. And so that's why you have to sit down and just write out these questions and just keep writing out questions until you really hit a point where you're like, wow, I didn't even realize I didn't know that. And then once you come to that conclusion, now you go and you look for your data, and you find the data that answers your question, and you will know when you've answered it, because you'll have an answer to it that works. You'll be able to test it, and you'll be able to test it over and over again, and it works. And then you'll look at other people who have had the same question, and you'll start to notice a pattern where the people who didn't ask the question approached this problem, and the people who did solved it. And you can even look at other people's solutions, and they've already got the answers. And sometimes I ask myself a question, and I'll look at, well, who already has the answer? Who already solved this? And
will that solution then work for us? Or does it at least narrow down the playing field, since we're kind of stuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even better than going and finding out who the solution is, I'd say do that first. Come, and I'm going to totally shamelessly plug Jeff and me, because we're both available. We would be available through our social media. We would be available to just connect with, because sometimes we need somebody to hear us out and to listen to what we're thinking and helping us ask the next question, because we can't figure out how to ask better questions on our own. We always need somebody outside of ourselves. And by the way, I would go so far to say we always need somebody outside of our business. And so that's one of those things that's really important. There's a lot we can do on our own, but until we put it out there and allow somebody else to hear it, see it, experience it, respond to it, we're not sure we're on track. And it's much better to go to somebody else before we go out than it is to just jump over that step, which, by the way, most of us do. Well, if it doesn't work, we'll iterate. If it doesn't work, we'll fail fast. That's an excuse.
Yeah.
For not thinking. No offense to anybody out there, but think already.
I think failing fast, it doesn't work if you don't have a solution in mind. I mean, right. You want to have a solution in case you ask yourself, what if this does fail, right? And you implement it, maybe if that's what you have to do, but you always try to limit it, and you always try to figure out how can we recover very quickly. So you're not testing failure, you're testing recovery and how fast your business can recover from something.
I like this distinction, and I want you to continue and go further. I'm just going to put a pin in this and say, hey, people, are you hearing? What I heard key was, let's not just get an idea and do it and then fail fast. We have to know the solution that the idea is supposed to get, so we understand if we failed or not.
Yeah. And if you don't know the answer to recovery, then that's where you need to do research. You need to collect data that you absolutely need. Yep. And you want to approach it with where are the problems? Who could stop us? As far as like, we have this plan. We want to go, we want to be the world's largest company in 100 years. Oh, great. Who's going to stop you? Because there will be people, and that could be you. That could be the way your organization works. That could also be outside of yourself. That could be Amazon or Google. But what you have to ask yourself is, if they do try to stop us and we fail to implement the right product, how do we recover from that? How do we recover from implementing a product that doesn't work or meet the customer's needs, right?
Or cost so much money, there's no going back. To me, that no going back is the death of everything.
Yes.
Go forward in spite of failure so we can fail more.
The problem with failure too is also you get the gambler's fallacy, or you get the idea that if we keep failing, eventually this is going to pay off. If we keep doing it, eventually it's going to pay off. And there's one more aspect that I want to get across, which is that this is something that I thought about today, which is that what I'm finding is that our knowledge is limited to the things we can accept about our life, about our organization, about our business. And most of the time what you see is that businesses, they run away from new decisions because they can't accept where they're at. They don't want to accept that they're maybe the smallest person on the block, or that they are that at this moment they are insignificant. But that doesn't mean that they can't become significant. You have to accept where you're at to decide where it is you want to go. You can't be realistic. If you set unrealistic goals, you won't meet them, and then the team will be discouraged and you'll be discouraged, and then you'll say, well, I'll put it off next year, or maybe that was somebody else's fault. But realistically, it's just a lack of, you need to pull it back and say, okay, I'm not accepting where we are, and therefore I'm not finding information that's relevant to what we need. Because how can you know what you need if you don't know where you're at? And so as far as the data, that's as much information as I can give without like drawing diagrams and charts and going visual.
We may have to figure out how to do that. How do we add diagrams and charts and whiteboards to the Voice of Bold Business Radio? You might be onto something, because there is so much that I doodle and draw for our show notes, and then for my own benefit later as I'm reflecting on what did I prepare, what did I learn, was I able to pull out the magic in the conversation for my, not only what I think, but also for engagement of our audience, things like that. And we might need that.
Yeah.
But okay, so here we are, and I want to know, what makes it bold to think about how to adapt your business and know that it's going to be here in 100 years?
I think when we think about bold, right, I think it means excited. And the idea is that what makes it bold is that you're excited about what you're doing, and it's hard to be excited and to be afraid at the same time. And so I almost think that when we're excited, we actually remove our fear and we allow ourselves to do things. And so what I'm saying is that make the decisions that make you excited about what you're doing and about your life, and make the decisions that make other people excited. I mean, when we're talking, we're making ourselves excited in terms of like we get motivated when we start talking about what we're doing and what we're going to do. And so I guess my challenge to people as far as what makes it bold is that they draw a plan that makes them inspired, and that they believe will inspire others within 100 years, that they'll be proud of. That's my thought.
You are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is program 226, a business plan that lasts 100 years. Keep this conversation going. Use hashtag VBB Radio. And by the way, you're already listening. So before you leave your preferred listening platform like iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're listening, rate us. What did you like about this? And if you're giving anything less than all the stars or the thumbs up possible, please tell us why. Because here's the deal. You're the audience that we're looking for. You stopped by for a reason. We want to know where we met your expectations. We want to know how we're helping you. And we want to know how we're not helping you too. Because that helps us shape our message even more. Because we are all in this process of understanding what are we going to do for our future. And use the feedback from all the listeners, use the feedback that Jeff shared, use the feedback that you'll hear from me over time, and apply it practically. Get out there and use it, and don't learn from our mistakes. Learn from our thinking and doing and the mistakes that we had so that you can go think and try something different and get to where you want to go as quickly and efficiently as possible. And we want to know, Jeff and I, how will you create a business plan that will last 100 years?
The voice of Bold Business Radio gives you insights about how to achieve your company's growth strategy. When you aren't seeing the growth results you want, it's time to get an outside perspective. To discuss your specific situation around growth strategy, work with us. Visit voiceofboldbusiness.com and click Find Out More. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production. Thank you for joining us.